She gave her credit card to a broke single dad as a joke 24 hours later. She regretted laughing. The night she extended her credit card toward him began like countless others in her life, wrapped in polished confidence and effortless control. The glass-fronted building behind her glowed with warm light, reflecting a world she knew. Well, a world where inconvenience was mistaken for struggle, and generosity was often treated like entertainment. She stood straight in her red dress, perfectly composed, her expression calm with a hint of amusement, as if the situation in front of her were nothing more than a brief distraction before returning to what truly mattered. Across the small white table sat a man who looked out of place in ways that went deeper than clothing or posture. His white t-shirt was clean but clearly old, stretched slightly at the seams, worn by days that demanded more than they gave back. His face carried the quiet exhaustion of someone who had learned not to complain because no one was listening anyway. He was a single father, recently laid off after years of loyal work, his savings drained by rent, school fees, and medical bills that arrived without warning or mercy. Tonight, he wasn't here by choice or ambition. He was here because his daughter's school required a deposit for an event that meant the world to her, and he had run out of ways to explain why he couldn't afford one more thing. As he spoke, his voice remained steady, careful, choosing words that wouldn't sound like excuses, even though his life felt like one long explanation. Around them, laughter drifted from people dressed in tailored suits and elegant gowns, their conversations light, their futures secure. She listened, nodding politely, but her attention wandered between his story and the payment terminal resting on the table, as if the solution were obvious and almost boring. Without pausing to consider how it might feel on the other side, she reached into her purse, pulled out her sleek black credit card, and held it out toward him. Her smile widened just slightly, playful rather than warm. "Here," she said, her tone casual, almost teasing. "Use it. It's not a big deal." A few nearby guests glanced over, some smiling, some whispering, interpreting the moment as an act of casual generosity. A rich woman amusing herself by rescuing a struggling stranger. For her, it was exactly that, a fleeting joke, a story she might tell later with a laugh. But the man didn't smile. He stared at the card as if it were something fragile, something dangerous. His pride rose instinctively, clashing with the reality of his empty bank account and the image of his daughter, sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to be brave while asking if everything would be okay. His hands trembled slightly as he accepted the card, not from excitement, but from the weight of humiliation and necessity colliding in his chest. He didn't thank her immediately. He didn't make promises or jokes. Instead, he met her eyes, and in that moment, she noticed something she hadn't expected: resolve. Not desperation, not gratitude, but a quiet determination that didn't belong to someone who intended to be saved. He told her he would return the card within 24 hours, every dollar accounted for. The way he said it made it sound less like a hope and more like a decision. She laughed softly, assuming he was playing along, humoring her joke. She waved it off, already disengaging emotionally, confident that this interaction would end as soon as she walked away. The paperwork was signed, the card returned to her hand, and the moment seemed complete. She turned, rejoining her world without a backward glance, her laughter blending with the sounds of the night. But as she drove home later, the city lights streaking past her windshield, his expression refused to fade from her thoughts. It wasn't the look of a man relieved to be helped. It was the look of someone who had just been challenged. She poured herself a drink, replayed the scene with a smirk, and dismissed the unease creeping into her chest. To her, it had been a harmless joke, a reminder of the power money gave her. She went to sleep believing the story ended there, unaware that for him, it had only just begun, that within 24 hours, the balance between them would shift in a way she could never laugh away. The next 24 hours unfolded in a way she never bothered to imagine. For her, the day began as usual: meetings, messages, small decisions that carried weight only because money gave them meaning. The moment with the single father faded into the background, reduced to a passing anecdote she almost shared over coffee but decided wasn't interesting enough. She assumed he would either disappear quietly or fail to return, proving what she already believed about people in his position. The credit card rested safely in her purse, untouched, and with it, her sense of superiority remained intact. Meanwhile, his night had barely begun. After leaving the building, he didn't go home to sleep or waste time feeling sorry for himself. He sat in his car for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel, replaying her laughter in his head, not with anger, but with focus. He knew exactly what 24 hours meant. It wasn't about the money. It was about dignity. By dawn, he was moving. He called an old contact who owed him a favor from years back. Someone who remembered his work ethic before life knocked him down. He picked up a temporary shift unloading inventory. Then another job repairing equipment he once specialized in. Hour by hour, he worked without pause, ignoring the ache in his hands and the fatigue clouding his vision. Between tasks, he sold a few personal items he had been holding on to, not because they were worthless, but because pride mattered more. Every dollar he earned felt like reclaiming a piece of himself. As evening approached, he checked the total again and again, calculating carefully, making sure nothing was missing. By the time the 24 hours were nearly over, he held an envelope with the exact amount, down to the last cent, along with something else: documentation, contracts, and a quiet plan that had taken shape while his body worked and his mind refused to rest. Back in her world, she stepped out of another event, surrounded by familiar faces and predictable conversations. When she saw him standing there, waiting calmly, not anxious, not hopeful, her first reaction was surprise mixed with mild irritation. She hadn't expected him to return so soon, if at all. He approached her without hesitation and handed her the envelope. She accepted it absently, already preparing a dismissive smile, until she noticed the careful way it was sealed and the steadiness in his gaze. She opened it, her expression shifting as she counted the money every charge covered. Nothing extra, nothing missing. Confusion flickered across her face, followed by disbelief. Before she could speak, he explained, not defensively, but clearly. He told her how he earned it, how he chose not to use her card, how he refused to let her joke define him. Then he placed the documents on the table. Between them, proof of a small but legitimate business opportunity he had secured. Through connections she assumed he never had. He wasn't asking for help. He was offering her a choice: invest not out of pity, but because it made sense. The people around them noticed the shift in energy, the way her confidence faltered for the first time. Laughter died down. She felt heat rise to her face, not from embarrassment alone, but from the realization that she had misjudged him completely. This wasn't a man rescued by her generosity. This was a man who had turned her mockery into momentum. For the first time in a long while, she felt small, not because she lacked money, but because she lacked humility. He thanked her then, but not for the card. He thanked her for reminding him what he refused to become. With that, he turned to leave, not waiting for approval, not looking back. She stood there, holding the envelope and the weight of her own assumptions, realizing that the joke she laughed at had exposed something uncomfortable within her. Money had always protected her from consequences, from reflection. But now, it couldn't shield her from the truth. In trying to prove someone else insignificant, She had revealed her own emptiness as his figure disappeared into the night. She understood that regret didn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it came quietly, in the form of respect earned by someone you underestimated, and the knowledge that no amount of wealth could buy it back once it was lost.